outside Niwot, Colorado, a little town named for a great Arapaho chief. Yes, I had written hundreds of judicial decisions over the last decade, sitting on an appellate court that serves about 20% of the continental United States. But few people outside of legal circles knew who I was. That life was now over. Our trip to Washington was enough to convince me of that. Two young White House lawyers, Mike and James, had arrived at our home on the Sunday afternoon before the scheduled Thursday evening announcement of my nomination, with the task of accompanying Louise and me to the nation's capital. I was out mowing the lawn and asked the pair to join us for our usual Sunday dinner of chicken curry. They accepted, and after our meal together headed off to a local hotel with plans to return the next morning to collect us for the flight. Except at some point Monday morning, the president told the media he would be making his nomination on Tuesday instead of Thursday. Eager to break the news of the president's pick before he could make his own announcement, reporters quickly descended on all the homes of the prospective nominees, and satellite dishes, cameras, microphones, and lawn chairs soon crowded the end of our street. Mike and James, wearing suits and ties, not exactly standard attire in the Colorado countryside, approached the frenzy in their rental car and immediately realized that if they continued to our home, they would be spotted. To avoid that, and after more than a few abandoned plans, including a run to the local superstore for casual clothes, the lawyers called to ask, would Louise and I please hike a mile through the prairie away from the reporters' camp? They promised to pick us up at a trailhead. It may have sounded like a good idea to them, but the prospect of lugging my wife's suitcase through the brush seemed like a bad idea to me. Instead, Louise and I decided to ask a neighbor to drive us out. The reporters had already seen his car come and go a few times, and maybe they wouldn't notice. And even if they did, it seemed to beat the alternative. Our neighbor, a dear friend, enthusiastically agreed. As we got into his car, he said, "You know, Neil, I have a better idea. There's another way out." That was news to me. We had lived in our home for years, and while there were plenty of hiking trails and horse paths, there were no other roads out of the neighborhood. My friend pointed to a path that led from the back of a neighbor's house to a nearby commercial barn, and said he had actually managed to drive it before. "I grew up in Iran during the revolution," he said, "and I learned a thing or two there. And I would never buy a house with only one escape route." So I fled my house, and temporarily the spotlight, by way of a bumpy farm track. My neighbor and I came to call our experience the escape from Lookout Ridge. In retrospect, it wasn't an escape at all. That drive threw me face first into the topsy-turvy world of modern-day Supreme Court confirmation battles. This book was born of that confirmation process, though it is not about it. A decade earlier, the Senate had confirmed my judicial nomination to the 10th Circuit by a voice vote, without opposition, and with the support of both of my home state's senators, one a Democrat, the other a Republican. My hearing had lasted about 15 minutes. This time around was different. As the months-long process unfolded, I heard people speak about the law and my decades in the profession in ways that I didn't recognize. Some suggested that as a judge, I liked one group of persons or disliked another. In an effort to prove their point, they would sometimes single out a case where I had ruled for or against a particular kind of person, but overlook plenty of cases where I had ruled the other way. Often, too, they would fail to engage the critical legal or factual reasons for the different outcomes. Others insisted that I promise to overrule certain decisions they disagreed with or reaffirm ones they preferred. By the end of it all, I came to realize that some today perceive a judge to be just like a politician who can and must promise and then deliver policy outcomes that favor certain groups. They see the job of a judge as less about following the law and facts wherever they lead, and more about doing whatever it takes to help this group or stop that policy. And it struck me. It's one thing to worry some judges might aggrandize their personal preferences over a faithful adherence to the law, but it's another thing to think that judges should behave like that. The idea that judges do and should allow their policy preferences to determine their legal rulings was foreign to my experience in the law. The judges I admired as a lawyer